my name is Maria Perez, and I am a core manager with Biogen. I was a social worker for about 10 years before I decided to go back to school and become a nurse. And then I did some work in the emergency department. And then I also worked at the Los Angeles City Jails. So I was a correctional nurse before I started in hemophilia. And now I've been working in the hemophilia world for 4 years.
I don't think I knew that you were a nurse in a correctional facility.
Yeah, all of LA City Jails.
How long were you doing that?
I did that for about a year and a half until I got tired of getting called names and stuff.
Okay, that kind of begins to answer where I was going with this, which is that's a unique environment, a specialty environment to be providing nursing care.
In LA City Jails, because you see both men and women, you have to be able to kind of shift your mentality from, treating a woman who might be pregnant and ready to give birth to a guy who just got arrested for a DUI.
In general, and then also specifically as a first-generation Mexican-American yourself, are there challenges that you notice in the community in general that people may not, but because of your various backgrounds, you've been able to notice some things?
We've known about the challenges that first-generation kids face, for a while. What makes the hemophilia community special is that a lot of these parents that are immigrants have to learn just so much more and in a language that they don't understand. And then their child, if it's, let's say, the oldest child, they have to learn that. Plus, they have to help their parents navigate through the healthcare system. In some instances, I think they might even be a little bit more independent. But they definitely have a lot of challenges too, because I think, with any mother, they want to protect their child and they want to do what's best for them. So, those helicopter parents, they're very much alive in the Hispanic community. Ask my mom.
And it's not just folks from Spanish language households, but it's really any immigrant family for whom English isn't a native language, that becomes a barrier.
I think it's really important to really focus on developing those kind of mentoring programs where if you've been there, done that, take the hand of a new family that you just met at the chapter event and, guide them through the process. Don't be afraid of exchanging people, like your phone numbers and saying, hey, you know what, I know this other person that lives near you and that they can help and guide you. And I think that goes for anyone.
I didn't realize that there was an organized group doing that or going to meet new families. So that's something I'm curious to talk with Cynthia and the chapter about and make myself available for. And I would encourage all of us who are interested and willing to do that, because that is such an alleviator when you immediately meet other community members and can see what the options are, ask questions, get specific answers.
Some people, unfortunately, are still embarrassed about the diagnosis of hemophilia, so they're not reaching out and asking for help and accessing the resources. But I think, once you do ask for help and you have the right people that are connected to you, the help is there.
It's worth mentioning, too, that the trouble of asking for help isn't just exclusive to newly diagnosed families or people directly affected by it. It's caregivers, it's people of any age. It's probably both of us at times. That's something that we all should just remember, and I have to remind myself a lot, because by asking for help, it also encourages people who are in need to ask themselves. It sets an example.
Exactly.
You mentioned earlier that the child who has to kind of become a little bit more mature if they're from a home that English isn't the language spoken at home, the child kind of has to take on that role. And we were talking about how that's also true with unaffected siblings of people who have a bleeding disorder. And I liked the word you used, the parentifying of the unaffected sibling. And, my brother did have a bleeding disorder, and I didn't feel that because of his bleeding disorder, but just being from a divorced family with a chronic condition. When we'd go off with Dad, I was very aware that, okay, I'm 8, but I'm the expert on what his care is and what he needs, and I have to kind of keep my own helicopter, head going. We want to involve unaffected siblings as best we can in the community, but at the same time, we don't want to cheat them of childhood experiences and
Yes.
growing up experiences. So how do you propose we navigate that aspect of our community?
Well, I think to start with, remembering that each child, whether they're affected by hemophilia or not, they're a child first. So let them be that. Let them be a child and let them kind of grow and explore their environment and mature in that way. And then the other thing is try to not put so much pressure on that unaffected sibling or, the oldest of the family to, be a primary caregiver. A lot of times with Hispanic families, both parents are working, right? And they're trying to make ends meet. Their focus is on putting food on the table. And so, you're, as an older child or maybe the unaffected child, you're constantly being told, make sure this gets done. Make sure you're taking care of your brother. Make sure you're taking care of your sister. And so you have this responsibility that's, maybe subliminally, being put on you. And so I think it's important to let them know that it's okay, that they don't take on all that responsibility.
Yeah, giving them permission to kind of decide where their own
Right.
boundaries are.
Yeah.
That's an empowering thing to do really on any topic.
I think a lot of times we forget how important it is to just sit down and listen to what the other person is actually trying to tell us.
Can you tell us about one challenge that you are either currently facing or have recently faced that has been stand out in your life?
My mom has stage 4 breast cancer. A lot of times as primary caregivers, we focus so much on that individual in the family that really needs our help and needs our support. And a lot of times we put undue pressure on them. Like I had a conversation with my mom the other day, and she was just like, I'm so tired of being strong. And I didn't realize how much our family keeps telling her that she needs to be. But it's okay if she's not.
I'm an actor, comedian, a boyfriend, a son, brother, and I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Virginia. I moved to California like in 2001 to pursue acting and comedy, and it's been great. And I enjoy doing what I do. I enjoy meeting a lot of awesome people. And I enjoy making people laugh and making people happy and just talking to people.
So one of the reasons that you're here today is because I see Thug Notes, which you're becoming very well known for,
Thank you, Patrick.
is actually quite similar to much of what Believe is doing and using entertainment and digital content to engage, educate, and empower people.
Thug Notes is it's basically a web series where the character Sparky Sweets PhD plays like a gangster character, and he's a doctor of books. He has his PhD in literature, and he just reads tons of books, and he breaks it down in a summary and analysis in kind of like street lingo, where everybody can understand it and just talk about a book in a certain way that's just not so like bougie or a way that only like academics can talk about a certain book. Kids like it, old people like it, my grandma likes it, people like it, and it's been great. I get messages, emails from people like, yo man, you got me through English lit. Yeah, I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't get to read this book, and thank you for breaking it down. So we're helping people, and which I'm all about. I'm all about helping people.
You actually have quite a background with education through art. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I've been like teaching kids since like Boys Club when I was in high school, camp counselor at the YMCA. I used to do Kaiser Permanente's educational theater program.
That's great, but it's hilarious, like those words in a row.
Yeah, think about it, right?
Pretty funny.
Kaiser Permanente Educational Theater. I've said it many times, Patrick. And I love children. They're so free. They're so open. They tell you how they feel. They don't care how you feel about it. I think it makes us feel younger when kids are around.
So talking a little bit more about your experience with obstacles and challenges. So you were an athlete originally, and is it fair to say a somewhat promising one?
I need to keep you right here, Patrick. I had the opportunity to go to school. I had a scholarship, and I tore my ACL like 2 weeks before school started. And I'm a happy dude. People get depressed, especially when they're teenage years and stuff. But it really took me down. I just really, powering through. is really what I had to do. And I'm not a good person at talking about issues and asking people for help. You're a football player. You're not supposed to be weak, or you're not supposed to cry. You're not supposed to be sad about certain things. I enrolled in like a community college, and I started acting. I started doing theater, and it made me feel better. And it just snowballed, and I just kept getting things. And next thing I know, like 3 years after that, I'm in California. So, just power through, push through those hard times. And it's hard to do, but that's the main thing I learned, that you can really get through anything anything in life, if you just have a positive attitude.
I think when the rug gets pulled out from under, devastating injury or some huge life event happens, there's an impulse to then try to chase and restore completely what you had and immediately get everything back together and feel focused and energized and empowered. But that's not realistic. Yeah. It's baby steps, right? Like the house falls down, you don't have a house the next day. You start by putting down a single piece of wood and going slowly. So it really, like powering through is really making the next decision.
I mean, sometimes that you want to try to rebuild, but sometimes it's over. Sometimes it's just done and you have to move on. I had to learn how to ride a bike. I had to learn how to ride a bike again, walk again. And it was just my friends. My friends really helped me a lot. And I was so glad for their support and my family,
So then you chose the really stable, tried and true path of becoming an entertainment professional.
Totally stable, yeah. I feel like it's always hard, but I feel like I think about me in that bed and with my leg just hurt, and I look back at my life then, and I just know I can just do anything. If somebody tells me no is just no for this person. Somebody's gonna say yes sooner or later. And you just gotta, even if that doesn't happen, you have to trick your mind into knowing somebody's gonna say yes sooner or later.
Yeah, especially if you're entering a profession where you're gonna hear no a lot more than yes.
All the time. And that's great. If they tell me no, hopefully they'll tell me why, and then I can fix it or try to change it and, just go on.
You're a comedian, a lot of road life for comedians, open mics, new venues, new owners, new club managers, new audiences, new material, a lot of variables, a lot of things that don't necessarily play well hand in hand with feelings of negativity or depression, and yet that's the nature of the beast. So how have you, as someone now you've been professional how long now in entertainment?
Probably about 14, 15 years now.
So that's enough to be able to you've seen a lot, you've experienced a lot. How have you stayed positive and empowered and not let some of the pitfalls of the entertainment world affect you?
I deal with depression not just my own depression, but my friends' depression. I'm a comedian, so when I go into a comedy club, it's at least 15 people that are severely depressed, but are smiling, smiling people, but are severely depressed. And we talk about it. It's like we have our own club, almost like, just like hemophilia. Where you're like, I can't tell you have a bleeding disorder. I can't tell my friend is depressed unless I talk to him. It's hidden. Try to surround yourself with people that are trying to do good and trying to stay motivated. Because, sad people like being around sad people. So, try to break that habit with people.
Yeah, my mom used to say growing up, you are the company you keep.
It's true.
You are the company you keep. And there's a lot to be said for that.
I was just wild, getting hurt. My parents didn't know how to take care of me. People would tell me not to do something. It was the first thing I'd go out and do. Had a few bad bleeds that kind of knocked me off my feet for a while, made me sit back and think. Through all that, going to doctors, hearing about kind of the promise of science, I was interested in learning about, how do they make this factor that we take? When is this so-called cure going to come out? What could I possibly do to become a part of that? Went to school down in UC San Diego, and after that I got a job doing research out in Vienna, Austria. That was for about 4 years, and there I was looking at inhibitor formation.
Am I correct, do you meditate? Is that a part of your practice?
I do, yeah.
When did you start meditating?
Maybe I was at the end of a bad relationship. I had broken up, and I was thinking about it often, and I just kind of noticed I wasn't focusing on the present, and it was kind of distracted at work. I read a book, and there was something about being present in the moment and meditating. And so every morning I would wake up and do kind of a little stretch routine, and at the very end of it, take 5 minutes just to focus on my breath. And I found after that, the whole day was kind of smoother. I was not so distracted, not so worried about things.
There's been a couple of conversations recently about pain management and people referencing meditation as a strategy. And I have found that I struggle with that too. My brain wants to go in 1,000 directions at once, and it's hard for me sometimes to stay present. And I get frustrated when I start meditating, or whatever my idea of that is, because, like you said, sometimes it's just that 1 second. Yeah. And I don't have a lot of patience, and I don't like things I'm not good at. These are things I have to work on. I admit that. I have to power through these obstacles and challenges in my own development as a human being. But it is worth striving for, because I have found when I find that moment of peace, it really does kind of help set the day in a better place. And I have a feeling if I could commit to it, it would also help with pain management as well.
My friend's mom would be so worried, hey, you can't run around too fast, you can't play with him too roughly. And it always like took me back. Probably I overcompensated in a way at that point and would end up doing things I shouldn't have done. Also, kind of just being in denial, like, hey, there's nothing wrong with me at all. I'm just gonna prove myself, go even one step further to show I'm better than the normal people without hemophilia. And then inevitably something would happen and I'd hurt myself, and then I couldn't do anything for a while, and I'd be like, okay, was that worth it? I think kind of being in this role of communicating with other people and trying to educate other people reminds me of that. It's like, wait a second, I'm telling people to do this, and I'm going back there again. Yeah. Maybe I can catch myself before I learn the lesson the hard way again.
I completely relate to all that, and I find it is funny sometimes discussing healthy lifestyle choices and self-care, and then having moments myself where I'm like, really, Patrick? But it is this human desire to want to, like you said, on some levels overcompensate. Being that you not only are an articulate person with hemophilia, but in your third year of med school studying this on a scientific level, give us some insight into the balance of how we maintain an active lifestyle while not overexerting ourselves, or at least in a habitual way that causes permanent damage.
Kind of taking small steps, not going from the couch to running a marathon. Just do a little bit and be patient and be happy with what you did. I'd go like skiing or something. It was like I had to be the first one on the mountain and the last one off, that I got as many runs as possible to feel good about myself. It's like, wait, no, just that if I'm able to go at all, that's something awesome. If I can take a couple runs and enjoy this, like, I'm gonna be grateful for that. It also comes back to like being present, and I'm not thinking about what I'm proving for other people. And when I do it consistently, then I can do more. Then my body will gain stronger. Then I'm gonna gain the muscle. I'm gonna take the time to stretch, get the flexibility. And if you take small steps of progression, then it can really take you a long way.
So camp, being a camp counselor, being a camper, we already discussed camp a little bit and its impact. One of my favorite quotes from camp growing up was challenge by choice, that camp provides opportunity after opportunity for challenge by choice. Can you each share some ways that you've seen camp help a camper overcome or make progress on an obstacle or a challenge that they faced?
Not only does it give them the opportunity to, one, begin to challenge themselves in terms of learning how to self-infuse, but also in terms of kind of getting out of their shell and becoming more social and getting to know other people. The San Diego camp and the Nevada camp have been starting to have their camp at the same time, and they kind of do their last day together. And so these kids are not only knowing their local San Diego family, but they're also getting to know, those kids that in Nevada that also have hemophilia. So now they've built this kind of network.
Well, I remember being a camp counselor and getting it was a deaf girl. She was fully deaf, and she was in my group. And the manager of the YMCA at the time asked to put her in my group, and it was cool to see how the kids adapted to her. I don't think these kids had a lot of experience with the deaf community, and by the end of the summer, like half the kids knew at least how to sign their names. They just made her feel included, and I think she appreciated it, and I think the other kids learned a lot from that, just having that little bit of diversity in that camp,
My parents, they wanted me to go, and the only way I went was that they bribed me with a new Nintendo at the time.
It's called incentive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, I got there and I was surprised with all the other hemophiliacs I saw that, I really became friends with. We didn't have a choice to go to the infirmary after breakfast, but we had to. But it was for the best. And, I think it was I was maybe no older than 9 years old. They said, okay, now you're going to self-infuse. And I had some other campers there next to me like, come on, man, just do it. I kind of like looked, wait, how do you mix it up? All right. And, I did it, and it was amazing. And that was, since then I've done all my self-infusions. I came home, and my mom was like bummed out because I wouldn't let her infuse me anymore.
That is a funny thing that happens, isn't it? When I'm home, if I'm like, I'll do it in an hour. If I stick once and I have trouble, she's like, do you want me to help? I'm like, no. I'm good. I'm a 30-year-old adult. I'm really good at this now. I similarly infused for the first time at camp, but only because the volunteer nurses that week at this camp, they were asking, like, is it okay if we come on Tuesday? Can we come? And I was like, yeah, sure. Everybody wants to watch me get infused? I don't know why that's interesting, but yeah, you can all come, no problem. So I show up to the infirmary Tuesday morning. There's like 10 nurses sitting around, and there's a little tray table out with a thing, and everything's all set up ready to go, but there's nobody behind the tray table, and that's when I realized, they think I do this myself. But I was with a counselor who I kind of had a little bit of a crush on. I didn't want to look bad, so I was like, okay, well, I know the gist, so I just went for it. And it wasn't successful. So then I got some help, and as we were leaving, I was like, Charlotte, I've never done that before. And she's like, what's the matter with you? I was like, I didn't want to look bad. All right, a little bit of a pivot now. So we all deal with stress, anxiety, pain, or some form of depression at some point in our lives. What are other techniques or pieces of advice that you guys could give based on personal experience with any of those?
I've been feeling a lot of anxiety lately, just kind of getting ready to get residency, looking at my career, like looking at the debt that I'm in, looking at all the responsibility ahead of me, and it's overwhelming. Kind of what I found is going back to just taking it one step at a time and still carving out time to do the things that I enjoy doing, still enjoying my life. Yesterday after an event, I went on a nice hike. This morning before I came here, I woke up a little earlier, I went to the beach, I went surfing. Finding the ways to do the things you can do within your ability, whatever that is, making that part of your life, even when, there's a lot of responsibilities, even when you have a big job to do, finding the time to spend with your friends, your family, doing the things you want to do. I think that helps. I think that's the core of your life,
My girlfriend's a huge traveler, and I remember one thing she told me like maybe 2 years ago. She was like, you always need something to look forward to, So like set a trip, plan a trip 6-7 months away, and just have something like, this is hard right now, but in 4 months, man, I'm going to be a Joshua Tree staring at the boulders, just something to look forward to.
Patrick and I had a conversation. I'm like, one thing you probably don't know about me is the way I do my stress relieving is I go to the shooting range. And so I go down to the Burrow Canyon, San Gabriel Valley, and they have like the house that the shoot house that LAPD has. You kick open the door and you just shoot all the targets and you feel so good.
I just want you to know that I respect you. I consider you a friend. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise.
You really kicked the door in?
That actually kind of gets me interested. Like, it's not so much the good. Yeah, I want the part where I knock a door down, because now it feels like an activity,
It's cardio, right?
It's cardio. There you go.
Kicking the door, it's cardio.
Yeah. Sure. I think HFA is offering that this year at Symposium. Kick down the door and shoot for cardio exercise in the morning. They're getting rid of early morning yoga. It's a new component to the Symposium. Next month, March, 2 days away, is now officially recognized by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services as Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month. 30 years ago, Ronald Reagan dubbed March Hemophilia Awareness Month, but now it has an official year-over-year government recognition. Has there been a moment in your life where you have been an advocate for yourself, for someone else, or have witnessed an act of advocacy that has impacted your life?
I began my career as a social worker, and I was also the oldest child, so advocacy has always kind of been my thing, right? Like, don't mess with my sister, going back to like that poor kid that I bit because he wouldn't give my sister her swing.
You bit a child?
I bit a child. But I think, really when I learned the value of advocacy was when I became a social worker, because I learned that for these children, I was the only one that was going to give them their voice. That's really one of the biggest gifts that we can give anyone, is that gift of advocacy and teaching them how to, how to use it.
Remembering before, like I was even wanting to admit I had hemophilia, I think that's where it starts, is first accepting what you have and what you can do. My mom helped me prepare a video for my class where I said, hey, this is what hemophilia is, this is what it means. Like everyone in that room didn't know what hemophilia was before and they did afterwards. And so I think kind of starting just with your own life and then building from there is a good way to get started in advocacy.
The other thing that's like we were talking about earlier, when you open up and you say something, it implicitly gives permission for someone else to then say, well, I actually am having some feelings too. It might give a kid with sickle cell anemia the courage to go home and say, hey, Mom, Dad, I want to go to school tomorrow and I want to talk about this. I want to let other people know. My classmate did it and I want to do it too.
I used to be a big brother, a mentor when I lived in San Francisco. I used to mentor 8 kids, single family homes. I'm still in contact with. I still call them up. Every time I go to San Francisco, I see them. And it's just cool seeing a kid just grow up. And I know I had such an impact on his life. I'm sure, he's helping other people out too now. So it's a snowball effect too. It just makes other people help other people, which is great.
It does. It sets the example. Well, real quick, round of applause for all 3 of our panelists today. To watch video from any of our previous Powering Through sessions, visit poweringthrough.org, or to learn more about National Cornerstone Healthcare Services, NCHS, visit nchswecare.com.